The sound of clinking glasses and pretentious laughter filled the opulent dining room of Evermore, Boston's most exclusive restaurant. Located in the heart of Beacon Hill, its reputation attracted the city's elite, politicians, entrepreneurs, and old money families who came to see and be seen beneath crystal chandeliers that cast golden light over marble floors. Among them moved Olivia Reed, 24 years old, invisible except when needed. She balanced a tray of champagne flutes with practiced precision, her movements fluid and unobtrusive as she navigated between tables. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her uniform pressed to perfection, her expression carefully neutral. She was good at being unseen, a skill she'd perfected over years of service work. "Another bottle of the Krug and make it quick," demanded Harold Whitmore, a real estate magnate whose reputation for both wealth and cruelty preceded him. Without looking up from his conversation, he snapped his fingers in Olivia's direction, not bothering to make eye contact. "Right away, sir," Olivia responded, her southern accent faint but detectable. She turned toward the kitchen, maintaining her composure despite the dismissive treatment. After 3 months at Evermore, she'd grown accustomed to being treated as part of the furniture. In the kitchen's controlled chaos, Olivia found a momentary reprieve. She leaned against the cool stainless steel counter, closing her eyes briefly. "Whitmore table again?" asked Marcos, the head chef, looking up from the delicate arrangement of a seared scallop dish. Olivia nodded. "Man spends more on wine in one night than my monthly rent. That's Boston for you. The divide between those who have and those who serve has never been wider." Marcos's hands never stopped moving as he spoke, his artistry uninterrupted by conversation. "2 more hours," Olivia reminded herself aloud, "then I can go home and practice." "Your piano?" Marcos smiled knowingly. "One day, you'll have to play. For us, you talk about it enough." Olivia laughed softly. "Maybe someday. Right now I need to get back out there before Mr. Whitmore sends a search party." The sommelier handed her the requested champagne, nestled in an ice bucket that probably cost more than Olivia's entire wardrobe. She balanced it expertly and pushed through the swinging doors back into the dining room. At Whitmore's table sat a collection of Boston's financial elite, investment bankers, hedge fund managers, and property developers, all engaged in conversation that alternated between business strategy and thinly veiled boasting. Olivia approached quietly, presenting the champagne for inspection. "Finally," Whitmore remarked, not bothering to acknowledge her directly. He was in his 50s, with silver-streaked hair and the confident posture of someone accustomed to authority. "We were discussing the new Performing Arts Center. Lawrence here believes it's a waste of funding. The city needs practical investments, not another playground for the cultural elite," argued Lawrence, a red-faced man whose suit strained against his substantial frame. Olivia remained still, waiting to serve the champagne, her presence forgotten, in the heated debate. "Culture elevates a city," countered a woman in a midnight blue dress, her diamond earrings catching the light with each emphatic gesture. "Without the arts, what separates us from mere commerce?" "Speaking of which," Whitmore said, gesturing toward the grand piano that sat untouched in the corner of the restaurant, "that beautiful Steinway hasn't been played once since they installed it. Decorative waste of $60,000. Olivia's eyes flicked involuntarily toward the instrument. She'd noticed it her first day, had even slipped over during setup once to run her fingers silently across the keys, feeling their weight and potential. The piano called to her, a siren song only she could hear amid the restaurant's expensive ambience. "Perhaps someone should play it," suggested another guest, a younger man whose kind eyes made him stand out among the harder faces at the table. "Like, who, our waitress here?" Whitmore laughed, finally acknowledging Olivia's presence with a dismissive glance. "I doubt the help has had the privilege of proper musical education." Something shifted in Olivia's expression. A flicker, quickly suppressed. She poured the champagne with steady hands, years of practice keeping her emotions from spilling over. Like the bubbly liquid she served. "Actually, I do play," she said quietly, the words escaping before she could reconsider. The table fell silent, surprised by the unexpected contribution from someone they'd been treating as invisible. Whitmore's eyebrows rose, his expression combining amusement and disbelief. "Is that so?" he asked, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "And where did a waitress from—" He paused, listening to her accent. "Georgia, is it? Where did you study?" "Juilliard?" "Perhaps." His mockery elicited chuckles from around the table. "Memphis," Olivia corrected, her voice soft but firm. "And I learned from my mother. She was a music teacher before she became ill." The younger man with kind eyes leaned forward. "What pieces do you play?" Before Olivia could answer, Whitmore interjected, "This is all very quaint, but we're trying to have a serious conversation. Perhaps you could just continue serving the champagne?" Olivia nodded, completing her task efficiently. As she turned to leave, she heard Whitmore's voice again, louder this time. "Actually, wait." There was a dangerous gleam in his eye now. "I propose a little entertainment. Let's have our Memphis waitress demonstrate her supposed talents on our $60,000 Steinway." Olivia froze, caught between humiliation and opportunity. "Harold, don't be cruel," murmured the woman in blue. "It's not cruelty, Elizabeth. It's opportunity," Whitmore announced, raising his voice enough that nearby tables turned to look. "If she's as talented as she claims, we'll all enjoy some music with our meal. If not," he shrugged, "well, at least we'll be entertained." Olivia stood rooted to the spot, feeling dozens of eyes turning toward her. The restaurant manager appeared at her side, looking concerned. "Mr. Whitmore, our staff are not performers," he began diplomatically. "I'll pay extra," Whitmore interrupted, waving his hand dismissively. "Consider it a special request." He turned to Olivia, challenge written across his features. "Well, was it all talk, or can you actually play?" The room had grown quiet now, the usual din of conversation dying down as the scene unfolded. Olivia felt heat rising in her cheeks, aware of judgmental gazes from all directions. 3 months of careful invisibility shattered in an instant. Her mind flashed back to Memphis, to the small house with peeling paint where her mother had taught piano lessons to neighborhood children, to the upright piano that was the only thing of value they'd kept after her father left. She remembered sitting beside her mother, tiny fingers stretching to reach the keys, her mother's patient guidance even as medical bills piled up on the kitchen table. "I can play," Olivia said finally, looking directly at Whitmore for the first time. His self-satisfied smile told her he expected failure, wanted it even. This wasn't about music. It was about power, about putting someone he perceived as beneath him in her place. The manager hesitated, then nodded slightly, giving Olivia permission to proceed. She handed him her serving tray, squared her shoulders and walked toward the Steinway with measured steps. The restaurant had fallen completely silent now. Olivia could feel every eye following her progress across the room. She approached the piano with reverence, running her fingertips lightly across its polished surface, before settling onto the bench and adjusting its height. For a moment, she sat motionless, staring at the immaculate ivory keys. This wasn't some weathered upright like she practiced on in her tiny apartment. This was a concert grand Steinway, the kind she'd only ever dreamed of touching. Olivia closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major filled the space, soft, delicate, almost questioning. Her fingers moved with natural grace born of thousands of hours of practice. Within moments, the restaurant ceased to exist. There was only Olivia and the music flowing through her. As the piece progressed, her confidence grew. The melody soared and receded like ocean waves, her touch precise yet emotional. She played from memory, from heart, from the deepest part of herself that had remained hidden beneath her waitress uniform. When the final notes faded into silence, Olivia opened her eyes to find the restaurant completely transformed. Diners sat motionless, many with glasses paused halfway to lips. The staff had stopped to listen, and at Whitmore's table, expressions ranged from shock to admiration. Olivia stood, smoothed her uniform, and without a word returned to the manager to retrieve her serving tray. "That was," he began, clearly struggling to reconcile the skilled pianist with the quiet server he thought he knew. "I should get back to work," Olivia said softly, taking the tray and heading toward the kitchen. As she pushed through the swinging doors, she heard a commotion behind her, applause breaking out spontaneously across the dining room. She didn't turn back. In the kitchen, the staff erupted with questions and congratulations. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Marcos asked, abandoning his station to approach her. Olivia shook her head, overwhelmed by the attention. "I should never have done that. I need this job." "Are you kidding? That was incredible." He gripped her shoulders gently. "Why are you here serving these people when you could be playing for them?" Before she could answer, the kitchen doors swung open again. Olivia turned, expecting to see the manager, perhaps to reprimand her for disrupting the evening service. Instead, she found herself face to face with the younger man from Whitmore's table, the one with kind eyes. "Excuse me," he said, "but I need to speak with you." Marcos raised an eyebrow at Olivia before returning to his station, leaving her alone with the unexpected visitor. "I'm sorry about Mr. Whitmore," the man said. "That was uncomfortable and completely inappropriate." Olivia nodded cautiously. "Thank you, but I should really get back to work." "My name is Nathan Blackwell," he continued, extending his hand. "I'm on the board of the Boston Conservatory of Music." Olivia's heart skipped a beat as she slowly accepted his handshake. "What you just played out there," Nathan said, his expression serious, "was extraordinary. Not just technically proficient, but emotionally resonant. May I ask where you studied?" "I didn't," Olivia admitted. "Not formally. My mother taught until I was 15, and since then I've taught myself." Nathan's eyes widened slightly. "That's remarkable. Listen, I don't want to keep you from your work, but I'd like to continue this conversation. Would you be willing to meet with me tomorrow at the conservatory?" Olivia stared at him, certain. This was some elaborate prank, perhaps Whitmore's final act of humiliation. "Why?" she asked directly. "Because talent like yours shouldn't be serving champagne to Harold Whitmore," Nathan replied without hesitation. "It should be nurtured, developed, shared with the world." For the first time that evening, Olivia felt a flutter of something long forgotten: hope. The Boston Conservatory of Music stood like a testament to artistic ambition, its red brick facade and grand columns projecting an air of established prestige. Olivia paused on the sidewalk across the street, clutching her worn leather messenger bag tightly against her side. Inside were her most treasured possessions: hand-copied sheet music, dog-eared theory books, and a small notebook filled with her own compositions. "This is insane," she whispered to herself, checking her watch for the 5th time. She'd barely slept after her shift ended, questions and doubts circling her mind like restless birds. What if Nathan Blackwell's offer had been insincere? What if this was just another form of humiliation? She'd called in sick to Evermore, something she'd never done before. Her modest savings wouldn't cover even a week without income, but something compelled her forward despite the risk. Squaring her shoulders, Olivia crossed the street and climbed the broad steps to the entrance. The interior was even more intimidating: polished marble floors, wall displays featuring distinguished alumni, and the faint sounds of practice rooms in use. Students moved purposefully through the hallways, instrument cases in hand, exuding the confident belonging that Olivia lacked. "May I help you?" asked a receptionist with wire-rimmed glasses and a skeptical expression. "I have an appointment." "With Nathan Blackwell," Olivia responded, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. The woman's eyebrows rose slightly. "And your name?" "Olivia Reed." After a brief phone call, the receptionist gestured toward a corridor to the right. "Third door on the left. Mr. Blackwell is expecting you." Walking down the hallway, Olivia passed practice rooms where pianists, violinists, and cellists honed their craft. Through glass panels, she glimpsed students bent over their instruments with the focused intensity of true devotion. Each room she passed intensified her sense of being an outsider, someone who didn't belong in these hallowed halls of musical education. Before she could reconsider, Olivia found herself at the designated door. She knocked tentatively. "Come in," called a familiar voice. Nathan Blackwell's office was unexpectedly modest: bookshelves crammed with music theory texts, framed concert programs on the walls, and a baby grand piano in the corner. Nathan himself sat behind a desk covered with scores and administrative paperwork, looking more relaxed than he had at Evermore, dressed in a simple button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. "Olivia," he said warmly, rising to greet her. "I'm so glad you came." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied formally, still uncertain about his intentions. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please, sit. Would you like some coffee? Tea?" "No, thank you." Olivia perched on the edge of the chair, her posture rigid with tension. "Mr. Blackwell." "Nathan, please?" "Nathan," she amended. "I appreciate your interest, but I'm not entirely sure why I'm here." He studied her for a moment, leaning back in his chair. "First, I want to apologize again for Harold Whitmore's behavior. He's unfortunately representative of a certain type of Boston wealth, entitled and unnecessarily cruel." "I've encountered worse," Olivia said simply. Nathan nodded, his expression turning serious. "What you played last night, it wasn't just technically impressive. There was something in your interpretation that can't be taught, an emotional authenticity that many classically trained musicians spend years trying to develop." Olivia shifted uncomfortably under his praise. "It's just how I play." "Exactly." Nathan leaned forward, enthusiasm lighting his features. "And that's why I wanted to meet with you. The conservatory has a special admissions program for exceptional cases, musicians who demonstrate extraordinary talent but may have followed unconventional paths." Olivia's heart quickened, but she kept her expression carefully neutral. She'd learned long ago not to let hope take root too quickly. "You're offering me what exactly?" she asked cautiously. "An audition," Nathan replied. "If accepted, you'd receive a full scholarship for our advanced performance program. It's competitive, only 2 positions available this year, but based on what I heard last night, you have a genuine chance." Olivia took a deep breath, weighing his words. "I work full-time. I have rent to pay, bills." "The scholarship includes a stipend for living expenses," Nathan explained. "It's modest but sufficient to focus on your studies without outside employment. And what would be expected of me? Dedication, complete commitment." Nathan's gaze was direct and challenging. "This program isn't for hobbyists or the casually talented. It's for musicians who are prepared to devote everything to their craft." Olivia felt something shift inside her, a door long sealed, cracking open. Since her mother's illness had forced her to abandon her musical aspirations at 15, she'd resigned herself to a different path. The piano had become her private solace, not her future. "The audition is in 2 weeks," Nathan continued. "You'd perform for a panel of faculty members, including our director, Eleanor Winters." "Eleanor Winters," Olivia repeated, her composure finally cracking. "The Eleanor Winters?" Nathan smiled at her reaction. "Yes. She served as our director for the past decade." Olivia had grown up studying recordings of Eleanor Winters' performances, a pioneering female pianist who had broken barriers in classical music during the 1980s and 90s. The thought of playing before her idol was both thrilling and terrifying. "This is all." Olivia struggled to find the right words. "It's overwhelming." "I understand." Nathan's expression softened. "But sometimes, life presents unexpected opportunities. The question is whether we're brave enough to seize them." Olivia stood abruptly, moving to the window that overlooked the conservatory's courtyard. Below, students gathered in small groups, some practicing, others engaged in animated conversation. "My mother was brilliant," she said quietly. "She studied at Curtis in Philadelphia until she had to drop out to care for her own mother. Then she taught piano in Memphis, not the wealthy neighborhoods, but the working-class side where we lived. She charged what people could afford, sometimes just accepting baked goods or help with home repairs as payment." She turned back to face Nathan. "When she got sick, the medical bills consumed everything. I was 15 when I had to start working after school instead of practicing. By 18, I was managing a coffee shop and playing only when I could find the time and energy." "And yet you continued," Nathan observed, "despite everything." "I couldn't stop," Olivia admitted. "It would have been like stopping breathing." Nathan stood and moved to the piano in the corner. Would you play something for me? Not an audition piece, just whatever comes to mind." Olivia hesitated, then slowly approached the instrument. Unlike the showy Steinway at Evermore, this piano showed signs of regular use. The slight wear on the keys, the handwritten notes in the margins of sheet music resting on the stand. She sat, adjusted the bench and began to play. This time she chose Debussy's Clair de Lune, its impressionistic quality matching her unsettled emotions. As she played, memories surfaced, her mother guiding her hands over the keys, correcting her posture, encouraging her to find the music beyond the notes. When she finished, Nathan remained silent for several moments. "There's something I should tell you," he finally said. "Eleanor Winters was at Evermore last night." Olivia's head snapped up. "What?" "She was dining with colleagues in the private room. When she heard you playing, she came out to listen. It was her idea to offer you this opportunity." Olivia felt lightheaded suddenly, the implications overwhelming her. "Eleanor Winters heard me play." "And she wants to hear more," Nathan confirmed. "She specifically asked me to convince you to audition." Something occurred to Olivia then, a suspicion that made her narrow her eyes. "Were you there by coincidence? At Whitmore's table?" Nathan had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Not entirely. Eleanor and I were meeting with potential donors for our community outreach program. Whitmore was on our list of prospects, though not my favorite. When he demanded that you play, I was appalled. But then..." He shook, his head in wonder. "Sometimes fate works in unexpected ways." Olivia laughed without humor. "Fate. For years I've worked double shifts and practiced on a keyboard with missing keys, just to keep my technique from completely deteriorating. And now suddenly, a chance encounter might change everything." "Will you audition?" Nathan asked. Directly. Olivia thought of her tiny apartment with its second-hand furniture and the upright piano she'd salvaged from a church basement. She thought of endless shifts at Evermore, serving the wealthy while her own dreams gathered dust. She thought of her mother, who had sacrificed her own career but had never stopped believing in Olivia's talent. "Yes," she decided, "I'll audition." "Excellent." Nathan's face broke into a genuine smile. "Let's discuss repertoire. For the audition, you'll need to prepare 4 pieces demonstrating range and technical ability." A knock interrupted him, and the door opened to reveal a tall, elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair and penetrating grey eyes. Olivia recognized her immediately from album covers and magazine features, Eleanor Winters herself. "Nathan, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Juilliard's called again about the exchange program and..." She stopped, noticing Olivia. "Ah, you must be Ms. Reed." Olivia stood quickly, nearly knocking over the piano bench in her haste. "Yes, Ms. Winters. It's an honor to meet you." Eleanor's assessing gaze was intimidating in its intensity. "I heard you play Chopin last night. Your technique needs refinement, but your emotional expression was..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Authentic. Rare in my experience." Coming from Eleanor Winters, even this measured praise felt monumental. Olivia struggled to maintain her composure. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," Eleanor replied crisply. "An audition is one thing. The program itself is another entirely. It will push you beyond what you believe yourself capable of." "I understand," Olivia said, straightening her posture instinctively under Eleanor's scrutiny. "Do you?" The older woman's tone was skeptical. "You've been working as a waitress, yes? No formal training since your mother's lessons?" "That's correct." "Then you have no concept of what awaits you here." Eleanor's statement was matter of fact, not unkind. "You'll be competing with musicians who've had advantages you haven't. Private tutors, conservatory educations, parents who cultivated their talents from childhood. They'll resent your presence, see you as an interloper." Olivia felt a flicker of anger at the implied dismissal. "With all due respect, Ms. Winters, I've spent my life being underestimated. It hasn't stopped me yet." Something shifted in Eleanor's expression, a subtle approval. "Good. You'll need that spirit." She turned to Nathan. "I'll leave you to discuss the audition requirements. Ms. Reed, I look forward to hearing your prepared program in 2 weeks." With that, She departed as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving a charged silence in her wake. "Well," Nathan said, his expression both amused and impressed, "you've survived your first encounter with Eleanor. Is she always so intimidating? Yes, but she's also the most brilliant instructor and advocate you could hope for." He moved back to his desk and retrieved a folder. "These are the audition guidelines. You'll notice there are specific technical requirements along with some flexibility for personal choice." Olivia accepted the folder, her fingers trembling slightly as reality set in. 2 weeks isn't much time. "It's not," Nathan agreed, "but something tells me you work well under pressure." He scribbled on a notepad and handed her the page. "My personal number. Call if you have questions about the audition or the program." As Olivia left the conservatory, folder clutched tightly in her hands, the bright September afternoon seemed charged with new possibility. For the first time in nearly a decade, she allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where music wasn't stolen moments at dawn and midnight, but the center of her existence. The walk to her apartment took her through neighborhoods that transformed gradually from academic affluence to working-class pragmatism. Her building, a converted textile factory with exposed brick and unreliable heating, housed an eclectic mix of students, service workers, and young professionals drawn by the relatively affordable rent. Inside her small one-bedroom, Olivia went straight to her piano, a battered upright with yellowed keys and slightly uneven action. She placed her hands on the keyboard, feeling the familiar resistance beneath her fingers, so different from the responsive touch of the conservatory's baby. Grand. Opening the folder, she studied the audition requirements. The technical selections were demanding. Bach's Prelude and Fugue in a minor, a Beethoven sonata movement, and a Chopin etude. The final piece was the applicant's choice, meant to showcase individual artistic voice. For hours, she worked through scales and technical exercises, reacquainting her muscles with patterns long neglected due to exhaustion and lack of time. As the sun set, casting long shadows across her worn hardwood floors, Olivia remained at the piano, lost in the focused state that had always been her refuge. A sharp knock at her door finally broke her concentration. She opened it to find her neighbor Marcus, a jazz saxophonist who worked days at a record store. "Damn, girl," he said with a low whistle. "I haven't heard you play like that. Ever, actually. What's going on?" Olivia leaned against the doorframe, suddenly aware of how long she'd been practicing without a break. "I have an audition for the Boston Conservatory." Marcus's eyes widened. "Seriously? That's amazing." He studied her face. "But you don't look entirely happy about it." "I am," Olivia insisted. "It's just a lot. If I get in, everything changes. If I don't, if you don't, you're exactly where you are now," Marcus finished for her. "Except with the knowledge that you tried." He grinned suddenly. "But that playing I just heard, they'd be fools not to take you." His confidence warmed her. "Thanks, Marcus. Listen, a bunch of us are having a jam session at the basement tonight. Why don't you come? Clear your head before you dive into audition hell." Olivia hesitated, glancing back at her piano. "The piano will still be there tomorrow," Marcus said gently. "And honestly, you sound like you need a break before your fingers fall off." She knew he was right. 2 weeks of non-stop practice would lead to burnout, not success. "Okay, give me 15 minutes to change." After Marcus left, Olivia stood in the center of her apartment, taking in the space that had been her home for the past 3 years. The mismatched furniture collected from thrift stores and sidewalk discards, the wall of photographs, her mother at the piano, Olivia's high school graduation, friends from Memphis, and everywhere, evidence of her musical life. Stacks of sheet music, theory books, a metronome, pencils for marking scores. Despite working 60-hour weeks, she'd never stopped playing, never stopped learning. Even when exhaustion made her fingers clumsy, even when rent increases meant cutting back on groceries, the music had remained her constant. Now, possibility stretched before her, terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. If she succeeded at the audition, she would enter a world she'd only glimpsed from the outside. If she failed, Olivia pushed the thought aside. For now, there was only the work, the daily discipline of practice, the gradual reclaiming of technique, the emotional connection to each piece. The outcome would reveal itself in time. As she changed for the evening out with Marcus and his friends, Olivia felt a strange sense of standing at a crossroads. Behind her stretched the path of practical compromise. Ahead lay an uncertain road of artistic ambition. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope that her mother's faith in her talent might be vindicated after all. The conservatory's practice rooms were allocated on a strict schedule, with priority given to enrolled students. As a scholarship auditionee, Olivia had been granted limited access, 2 hours daily in the smallest room on the basement level. It wasn't ideal, but the upright Yamaha there was still far superior to her instrument at home. For the past 10 days, she'd established a grueling routine: early morning practice at her apartment, a shift at Evermore, where she'd returned after C. Her illness was unable to sacrifice the income, then evening sessions at the conservatory until security ushered her out at closing. Tonight, she'd been working on the Bach prelude and fugue, struggling with the contrapuntal complexity that demanded independence between her hands. Frustration mounted as she repeatedly fumbled a particularly difficult passage. "You're rushing," said a voice from the doorway. Olivia startled, turning to find Eleanor Winters observing her with that penetrating gaze. "Ms. Winters," she acknowledged, automatically straightening her posture. "I didn't realize anyone was listening." Clearly, Eleanor entered the small room, closing the door behind her. "Bach requires patience. You're attacking it like it's Rachmaninoff." Olivia resisted the urge to defend herself. "I'm still getting comfortable with the piece." 4 days before your audition, Eleanor raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps you should have selected something more within your capabilities." The criticism stung, especially coming from a woman Olivia had idolized. "The audition requirements specified a Bach prelude and fugue. This is the one I know best." "Knowing and mastering are different matters." Eleanor moved closer, her presence commanding the small space. "Play it again, just the fugue exposition." Olivia turned back to the piano, hyper-aware of Eleanor's scrutiny. She began the fugue, focusing on maintaining clear voicing between the contrapuntal lines. When she finished the exposition, she stopped, hands hovering above the keys. "Better," Eleanor conceded. "But you're still thinking of each voice individually." Bach's genius lies in how the voices speak to each other. A conversation, not parallel. Monologues. She reached past Olivia, demonstrating a short passage. Her technique was flawless, each finger precisely articulating its role in the musical dialogue. "Do you hear the difference?" she asked. Olivia nodded, absorbing the nuance in Eleanor's interpretation. "Yes." "Try again." For the next 30 minutes, Eleanor worked with Olivia on the Bach, offering specific, incisive feedback that transformed her understanding of the piece. There was no praise, only precise correction, and occasional nods of approval when Olivia successfully implemented a suggestion. "That's enough for tonight," Eleanor finally said, checking her watch. "You'll overtire your hands if you continue." Olivia flexed her fingers, which had indeed begun to cramp from the intense focus on technical details. "Thank you for your help." Eleanor regarded her with cool assessment. "Nathan speaks highly of your potential. I remain unconvinced." The blunt statement caught Olivia off guard. "May I ask why?" "Talent without technical foundation is ephemeral, a momentary pleasure rather than a sustainable artistic voice." Eleanor gathered her belongings, preparing to leave. "You play with genuine emotion, Ms. Reed, but this program demands more." "I'm aware of my technical limitations," Olivia admitted. "That's precisely why I want this opportunity, to build the foundation my circumstances haven't allowed." Something flickered in Eleanor's expression, perhaps respect for the honest self-assessment. "We shall see. The audition panel will make their decision based on your potential, not your biography." After Eleanor departed, Olivia remained at the piano, mulling over the interaction. The director's standards were intimidating, but her guidance had been invaluable. For the first time, Olivia felt she truly understood how to approach the Bach, not as a technical exercise, but as a musical conversation. She gathered her scores, tucking them into her messenger bag alongside the waitress uniform she'd need for her late shift at Evermore. As she was leaving, she nearly collided with another woman in the hallway, tall, impeccably dressed, with the confident bearing of someone accustomed to success. "Sorry," Olivia apologized, stepping aside. The woman glanced at her, then at the practice room door, her expression shifting from neutral to disdainful. "You're the waitress, aren't you? The special audition candidate." Olivia stiffened at the tone. "I'm Olivia Reed." "Camilla Reynolds," the woman replied without offering her hand. "I'm also auditioning for the scholarship. I was just looking for Ms. Winters. She left a few minutes ago," Olivia provided, uncomfortable under Camilla's scrutiny. "I see she's giving you private coaching. How charitable." The comment dripped with insinuation. Olivia chose her words carefully. "She offered some feedback on my Bach interpretation." Camilla smiled without warmth. "Bach can be so challenging for those without classical training. I studied with Mikhail Pletnev in Moscow for 3 years. It's rather essential for proper interpretation." The name-dropping was deliberate, a reminder of the pedigree Olivia lacked. Rather than engaging, Olivia merely nodded and moved to continue down the hallway. "It's nothing personal," Camilla called after her, "but this program is designed for serious musicians with proven potential, not charity cases who played once in a restaurant." Olivia stopped, turning slowly to face her competitor. "You seem remarkably concerned about my audition." "I'm concerned about the program's standards," Camilla corrected smoothly. "A scholarship should go to someone prepared to make the most of it." "Like you?" "Precisely." Camilla's confidence was absolute. "I've trained my entire life for opportunities like this. You're playing at being a musician while serving drinks." The dismissal hit its mark, touching Olivia's deepest insecurity. Did she truly belong here, or was she deluding herself? But beneath the doubt flared determination, the same resolve that had kept her playing through years of exhaustion and limited resources. "We'll let the audition panel decide," Olivia said finally, keeping her voice steady. "Indeed we will." Camilla's smile turned predatory. "Best of luck with your Bach." The encounter left Olivia shaken as she hurried to her shift at Evermore. The restaurant was particularly busy that evening, a private event in the main dining room filled with Boston's elite, discussing a charity fundraiser, while consuming thousands of dollars worth of food and wine. "You're late," remarked David, the floor manager, as Olivia rushed to change into her uniform. "Sorry, I was at a practice session that ran long." She secured her hair into its customary tight bun, her mind still replaying the conversation with Camilla. David seemed unusually tense. "Mr. Whitmore is here tonight. He specifically asked that you not serve his table." Olivia felt simultaneous, a relief and indignation. "Fine by me." "He's also brought guests from the conservatory," David added, watching her reaction carefully. "Something about funding a new practice facility." Olivia froze. "Do you know who specifically?" "The director, I believe, an older woman, very distinguished, Eleanor something." The realization hit like a physical blow. Eleanor Winters was here, dining with Harold Whitmore, the man who had publicly humiliated Olivia and now explicitly requested she be kept away. The implications were troubling. Was Whitmore influencing the scholarship decision? Did Eleanor's unexpected tutoring session earlier signify guilt rather than genuine interest in Olivia's development? "Olivia," David prompted, "are you all right?" She composed herself with effort. "I'm fine. Which section am I covering tonight?" Throughout her shift, Olivia maintained professional composure while acutely aware of Whitmore's table in the private dining alcove. She caught glimpses of Eleanor engaged in conversation with the businessman, their interaction appearing cordial and familiar. During a brief lull, Nathan Blackwell appeared beside her as she arranged wine glasses at the service station. "Olivia," he greeted her quietly, "I didn't expect to see you working tonight. Shouldn't you be resting before the audition?" "Bills don't pay themselves," she responded, more curtly than she'd intended. "I see you're with interesting company." Nathan glanced toward Whitmore's table, his expression troubled. Politics and fundraising, an unfortunate necessity. The conservatory needs a new practice facility, and Whitmore Construction is the leading contender for the project. How convenient, Olivia muttered. What does that mean? She lowered her voice. It means I'm wondering if this scholarship audition is legitimate, or if it's just an elaborate performance to secure Whitmore's donation. Nathan's expression hardened. That's unfair and untrue. Eleanor doesn't compromise artistic standards for anyone, certainly not for donor relationships. She was giving me feedback on Bach earlier this evening, Olivia said. 2 hours later, she's dining with a man who humiliated me and specifically requested I be kept away from his table tonight. It raises questions. The timing is unfortunate, I admit, but Ms. Reed, David's sharp voice interrupted them. You're needed in Section 3. I should get back to work, Olivia said stiffly. Nathan caught her arm gently. Don't let this shake your confidence. The audition is about your playing, nothing else. She wished she could believe him, but doubt had taken root. As she served other tables throughout the evening, Olivia felt the weight of Whitmore's presence and the uncomfortable connection between her potential artistic future and his business interests. Near the end of her shift, as she cleared glasses, from a recently vacated table, a voice behind her made her start. Your Bach has improved considerably since this afternoon. Olivia turned to find Eleanor Winters regarding her with that same inscrutable expression. Thank you, she responded neutrally, continuing to collect glassware. You seem displeased to see me, Eleanor observed, her perception uncomfortably acute. Olivia hesitated, then decided on honesty. I find the situation somewhat confusing. Which situation would that be? You offering me guidance hours before dining with a man who publicly humiliated me and is apparently funding your new building. Eleanor's expression didn't change, but something sharpened in her gaze. I see. You believe your audition opportunity is connected to Harold's donation. Is it not? No, Ms. Reed, it is not. Eleanor's voice was cool but not angry. Harold Whitmore and I serve on several charitable boards together. Our professional relationship predates your employment at this establishment. His construction company is one of 3 being considered for our new facility, a decision that will be made by the Board of Trustees, not by me. Olivia felt a flush of embarrassment at the rebuke, but pressed on. He asked that I not serve his table tonight. Yes, because I requested it, Eleanor replied. I thought it would be uncomfortable for you, given your history with him and your approaching audition. The explanation was reasonable, making Olivia feel increasingly foolish for her assumptions. I apologize for jumping to conclusions. Your skepticism is understandable if misplaced. Eleanor studied her with clinical interest. Tell me, Ms. Reed, do you always expect the worst of people? The question caught Olivia off guard. I try to be realistic about motivations. A realistic assessment requires complete information, which you clearly lacked. Eleanor's tone was matter-of-fact rather than condemning. In my experience, assuming corruption without evidence reveals more about the accuser than the accused. The criticism stung precisely because it contained truth. Olivia had allowed past disappointments to color her perception, jumping to the worst conclusion without adequate evidence. I met your competitor this evening, Eleanor continued, changing subjects abruptly. Camilla Reynolds, technically brilliant, with an impressive pedigree. Olivia remained silent, unwilling to reveal her earlier encounter with Camilla. She lacks what you possess, however, Eleanor added, surprising Olivia. And what's that? Hunger. Eleanor's assessment was clinical. Ms. Reynolds plays beautifully because she's been taught to play beautifully. You play as though your survival depends on it. Before Olivia could respond to this unexpected insight, Eleanor continued. The audition begins at 10 on Friday morning. You'll be the second candidate. I suggest you spend tomorrow in focused preparation rather than serving drinks. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Olivia to consider her words. The interaction had been brief but consequential, shifting Olivia's understanding of both the woman and the opportunity before her. When her shift ended at midnight, Olivia declined Marcus's invitation to join friends for late-night drinks. Instead, she returned to her apartment and sat at her piano in darkness, playing softly to avoid disturbing neighbors. The Bach Fugue now made sense to her in a way it hadn't before Eleanor's guidance. The conversational interplay between voices, creating a whole greater than its parts. As her fingers traced the complex patterns, Olivia reflected on her encounter with Camilla Reynolds. The other woman represented everything Olivia wasn't: classically trained, confident, connected. By conventional standards, Camilla deserved the scholarship more. She'd followed the prescribed path, paid the expected dues. Olivia was the outlier, the exception, the wild card. Yet Eleanor's assessment lingered. Camilla lacked hunger. Was that enough to bridge the gap in their technical abilities? Could Olivia's raw emotional connection to music and desperate desire for this opportunity outweigh years of formal training? The next day, her last before the audition, Olivia called in sick to Evermore. She couldn't afford to lose the income, but neither could she afford to be exhausted for the most important performance of her life. She spent the morning at the conservatory, utilizing her allotted practice time to refine details in each audition piece. The Bach was finally cohering, and her Chopin etude had always been technically secure. Her chosen piece, a Scriabin prelude that showcased her emotional depth, felt ready. It was the Beethoven sonata movement that still troubled her. The I.E., Appassionata's first movement, demanded both technical precision and emotional intensity, pushing the limits of her capabilities. Each time she played it, small inconsistencies emerged, a rushed transition here, a blurred passage there. "You're overthinking it," came a voice from the doorway. Olivia looked up to find Nathan observing her practice. "The Appassionata requires overthinking," she countered. "It's unforgiving." "True, but you're second-guessing yourself rather than trusting your interpretation." He entered the room. "May I?" She vacated the bench, allowing him to demonstrate. His playing was refined and technically secure, but as he worked through the troublesome passage, Olivia heard what he meant. There was a deliberateness to his approach that made the music sound studied rather than spontaneous. "You see," he said, stopping mid-phrase, "technically correct, but mechanical," Olivia finished. "Exactly. Now you try, but this time, don't think about what might go wrong. Think about what Beethoven was expressing." Olivia returned to the piano, considering the passionate intensity that had driven Beethoven to create such challenging music. When she played the passage again, it flowed more naturally, still imperfect, but alive with authentic feeling. "Better," Nathan approved, "much better." They worked together for another hour, Nathan offering targeted suggestions without attempting to reshape her fundamental approach. Unlike Eleanor's exacting, sometimes severe instruction, his guidance was encouraging and supportive. "The panel tomorrow will include Eleanor, myself, and 3 other faculty members," he explained as they concluded. "Play for them as you just played for me, with conviction in your artistic choices. And if I make mistakes—" "You probably will, Nathan," acknowledged frankly. "Everyone does under pressure. What matters is how you recover, whether you let errors derail you or move past them to serve the music." His honesty was refreshing after Eleanor's intimidating perfection. "Thank you for your help, Nathan, not just today, but for everything." "I merely recognized what was already there," he replied with a genuine smile. "The rest has been all you." After Nathan left, Olivia continued practicing for several more hours, refining details but heeding his advice not to overthink. When security finally asked her to leave at closing time, she felt as prepared as possible given the circumstances. Outside the conservatory, the October evening was crisp, leaves crunching beneath her feet as she walked toward the subway. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Drinks to calm pre-audition nerves, the usual place, 9 p.m?" Olivia hesitated. She should rest, focus, prepare mentally for tomorrow. But the prospect of sitting alone in her apartment, anxiety mounting with each passing hour, seemed counterproductive. "Just one," she texted back. Need clear head for tomorrow. The basement was a favorite haunt of local musicians, a dimly lit jazz club with decent drinks and excellent live music. When Olivia arrived, Marcus was already there with several friends, including a bassist from the Boston Symphony and a vocalist who toured with a well-known indie band. The pianist arrives, Marcus announced, raising his glass in greeting. Tomorrow's the big day, right? Olivia nodded, sliding into the booth beside him. 10 a.m. judgment hour. You'll crush it, the bassist, Devin, assured her. Marcus played us a recording of Jean Chopin, seriously impressive stuff. You recorded me? Olivia asked, surprised. Marcus looked slightly embarrassed. That night you left your window open while practicing. I thought you should hear how good you sound to the rest of us. Before she could respond, a familiar voice cut through the ambient noise of the club. Well, if it isn't the Waitress pianist. Olivia turned to find Camilla Reynolds standing nearby, cocktail in hand. Accompanied by two conservatory students Olivia recognized from the practice room hallways. Camilla, she acknowledged neutrally. Shouldn't you be resting before tomorrow? I'm perfectly prepared, Camilla replied with easy confidence. Unlike some, I don't need last-minute cramming. Marcus glanced between them, sensing the tension. Friend of yours, Liv. We're both auditioning for the same scholarship, Olivia explained briefly. Competing is perhaps too generous a term, Camilla remarked. It implies comparable skill levels. Devin raised an eyebrow at the comment. Sounds like someone's feeling threatened. Hardly, Camilla laughed. I'm simply being realistic about relative experience and training. Music isn't just about training, the vocalist Jasmine interjected. Some of the best musicians I know never set foot in a conservatory. How charmingly democratic, Camilla replied, her tone dismissive. She turned back to Olivia. Regardless, I wish you luck tomorrow. Everyone appreciates an underdog story, even when the ending is predictable. As Camilla and her companions moved away toward the bar, Marcus whistled low. Wow, what's her problem? I represent something that threatens her worldview, Olivia said quietly. If someone like me can compete with someone like her, what was the point of her perfect musical pedigree? You're not just competing, Jasmine declared firmly. Based on what I've heard, you're winning. Olivia appreciated the vote of confidence, but reality was more complicated. She's technically brilliant. I heard her practicing Liszt yesterday. Flawless execution. Flawless but forgettable, Marcus countered. When you play, people feel something. That's rarer than perfect technique. The conversation shifted to other topics, and Olivia found herself relaxing despite the encounter with Camilla. These were her people, working musicians who understood the reality of balancing artistic passion with practical survival. As promised, she limited herself to one drink and departed early, needing rest before the most important day of her musical life. Outside her apartment building, she paused to look up at the clear October sky, stars visible despite the city's ambient light. Tomorrow would change everything, one way or another. After years of compromise and deferred dreams, Olivia would finally discover whether her mother's faith in her talent had been justified. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Inside her apartment, she sat at her piano one last time, not to practice but simply to feel the connection between her hands and the instrument that had been her constant companion through hardship and hope. Tomorrow she would play for her future. Tonight she played for herself and for the memory of her mother, who had given her the gift of music when there was little else to give. The recital hall gleamed with polished wood and perfect acoustics as Olivia watched Camilla Reynolds perform her audition program. Camilla's playing was technically flawless: pristine Bach, controlled Beethoven, effortless Chopin, and a dazzling Liszt showpiece that demonstrated virtuosic precision. "Thank you, Ms. Reynolds," Eleanor said when Camilla finished. "An impressive program, executed with technical excellence." As Camilla passed Olivia in the aisle, she whispered, "Best of luck matching that." Anxiety crawled up Olivia's spine as her name was called. The 5 judges, Eleanor, Nathan, and 3 other faculty members, watched expectantly as she took her position at the magnificent Steinway. Olivia began with the Bach Prelude and Fugue, focusing on creating the conversational interplay between voices that Eleanor had emphasized. Her Beethoven Appassionata followed, and despite a momentary finger slip in the development section, she found herself surrendering more fully to the music, allowing Beethoven's volcanic emotions to flow through her. The Chopin Etude, the revolutionary, came next, a piece Olivia had lived with for years. Her performance wasn't as technically immaculate as Camilla's, but it possessed an urgent quality that captured the revolutionary spirit Chopin had intended. For her final selection, Olivia chose Scriabin's Prelude in B minor, a piece far less technically demanding than Camilla's list, but one that showcased her interpretive depth. She played it not for the judges, but for the memory of her mother who had first placed her hands on piano keys. "Thank you, Ms. Reed," Eleanor said formally when Olivia finished. "Before you go, I have a question about your repertoire choice. Your Beethoven interpretation was quite individual. What guided your approach to the development section?" "I see the Appassionata as a dialogue between control and chaos," Olivia answered honestly. "The development represents the moment when order begins to break down under emotional pressure. I tried to honor that tension." Eleanor made a note without revealing her reaction. "And the Scriabin Prelude, an interesting choice for a final piece. Most candidates end with something more demonstrative." "Technical display isn't always the most honest form of musical communication," Olivia replied. To her surprise, Eleanor's mouth curved in the slightest suggestion of a smile. "Indeed. Thank you, Ms. Reed. We'll announce our decision this afternoon." In the hallway, Nathan emerged from the recital hall. "We're in deliberations. I just wanted to check that you're all right." "It wasn't perfect," Olivia began. "It wasn't meant to be perfect," Nathan interrupted gently. "It was meant to be yours, which it was, unquestionably. But only one gets the scholarship," Olivia pointed out. "Try not to torture yourself in the meantime," Nathan advised, before returning to the deliberations. Unable to face waiting alone in her apartment, Olivia wandered the conservatory's corridors, eventually finding herself in a small courtyard. She closed her eyes, mentally replaying her performance with a musician's critical ear. Was it enough against Camilla's flawless execution and impressive pedigree? Footsteps interrupted her thoughts. She opened her eyes to find Camilla standing before her. "I thought I might find you hiding out here," Camilla said. "Just getting some air before the announcement," Olivia replied. Camilla sat uninvited beside her. "You know you won't get it, right?" she said matter-of-factly. "Your Beethoven had technical errors. Your Bach lacked clarity in the middle voices. Your Chopin was passionate but messy." "Why are you here, Camilla?" Olivia asked directly. "If you're so confident in the outcome, why bother with this conversation?" Camilla turned to face her, her composure showing the first hints of strain. "Because I need to understand. You shouldn't even be in consideration, yet Winters herself is championing you. What makes you special?" "I don't know that I am special," Olivia answered honestly. "I just play the way I feel the music." "Feelings," Camilla dismissed. "Music is architecture, mathematics, precision, years of training and thousands of hours of practice, not feelings." "It's both," Olivia countered. "Technical foundation and emotional communication. One without the other is incomplete." Something shifted in Camilla's expression, a flicker of recognition, perhaps even reluctant respect. "You know, in a strange way, I almost hope you get it." "You do?" "It would validate all your noble ideas about talent transcending privilege," Camilla said with a thin smile. "Unfortunately, the real world rarely works that way." By 2:30, Olivia could no longer bear the anticipation. She made her way to the administrative building where results would be posted, finding a small group already gathered near the bulletin board. Camilla stood apart from the others, her posture rigid with tension. At precisely 3 o'clock, Eleanor emerged from the administrative offices with a single sheet of paper. "We had exceptional candidates for our special admissions scholarship this year," she announced. The decision was not made lightly. She pinned the paper to the board and departed. Camilla pushed through to the front of the small crowd. Olivia watched as she scanned the notice, her expression freezing in disbelief before walking stiffly toward the exit without acknowledging anyone. Heart pounding, Olivia approached the bulletin board and read, "The Boston Conservatory of Music is pleased to announce the recipients of the Special Admissions Scholarship Program for the current academic year. Advanced Piano Performance, Olivia. Reed Orchestral Conducting, Michael Chen." Olivia stared at her name, certain she'd misunderstood. But there it was, unambiguous and life-changing. She'd won the scholarship. "Congratulations," Nathan said, appearing beside her. "You earned this." "I don't understand," Olivia admitted. "Camilla's audition was technically flawless. Mine had mistakes. The panel wasn't looking for technical perfection," Nathan explained. "We were looking for artistic potential and distinctive voice. You have both in abundance." "Was it unanimous?" "Not initially, but Eleanor was your strongest advocate, which may surprise you. She argued that technical skills can be taught, but authentic musical communication, what you demonstrated in your scribe particularly, is innate." As Olivia walked toward the subway, the reality of her selection began to sink in. She spotted Camilla on the opposite platform, standing alone. Their eyes met across the tracks, and after a moment's hesitation, Olivia raised her hand in acknowledgement. To her surprise, Camilla returned the gesture with a slight nod before turning away as her train arrived. Again, from the development section. "And this time, don't rush the transition." Eleanor Winters's voice cut through the morning quiet of her private studio. 6 weeks of daily instruction had transformed Olivia's approach to the piano, her technique more disciplined, her interpretations more structured. "Better," Eleanor acknowledged. "The Whitmore Gala is tomorrow evening. I trust you're adequately prepared." "Yes," Olivia confirmed. "I've been working through the program with Nathan during our chamber music sessions." Eleanor's expression shifted subtly. "Mr. Blackwell has been particularly attentive to your progress." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent text from Marcus. "Emergency at apartment. Pipe burst. Need help ASAP." When Olivia arrived at her building, Marcus explained that a main pipe had burst, flooding her apartment. Water had damaged everything, including her beloved upright piano, and the building wouldn't be habitable for at least 2 weeks. With temporary housing secured at her friend Jasmine's apartment, Olivia faced her next challenge, preparing for tomorrow's gala without access to a piano. Nathan offered her the key to a faculty studio for the evening, technically against conservatory rules, but essential under the circumstances. The following day brought a surprise call from Harold Whitmore himself. "I understand congratulations are in order. You've secured the conservatory scholarship." "Thank you," Olivia responded neutrally. "I'm hosting a charity gala next month, raising funds for underprivileged music education. I'd like you to perform. The exposure would be valuable for someone in your position." That evening at the Boston Park Plaza, Olivia performed her carefully prepared program: Bach's Italian Concerto, Chopin's Nocturne, and Liszt's Consolation No. 3. Her playing balanced technical control with genuine feeling, exactly as Eleanor had been teaching her to achieve. The audience responded with enthusiastic applause, and Olivia caught sight of Eleanor's subtle nod of approval. As the evening progressed, Whitmore approached their table. "Ms. Reed, you've impressed my guests enormously. I've taken the liberty of scheduling a small soiree at my home next month. You'll perform, of course." Before Olivia could respond to this presumption, Eleanor intervened. "I'm afraid Ms. Reed's schedule is quite full with conservatory obligations. Any additional engagements would need to be coordinated through the proper channels." Outside the hotel, as Olivia waited for a taxi, Camilla Reynolds approached. "I was in the audience," she said without preamble. "Your Bach has improved considerably." "Thank you," Olivia replied, surprised by the acknowledgement. "I heard about your apartment," Camilla continued. "I have a spare room in my apartment. It's closer to the conservatory than wherever you're staying now, I imagine." "Are you offering me a place to stay?" "Don't make it into a Hallmark moment," Camilla replied sharply. "It's a practical arrangement. My roommate left mid-semester, and I need help with the rent." and there's a baby grand in the living room that you'd be welcome to practice on." The following day, Olivia viewed Camilla's elegant brownstone apartment and accepted the unexpected offer. When she informed Eleanor of this arrangement, her teacher's reaction was one of surprised approval. "An interesting development," Eleanor observed. "Ms. Reynolds is an accomplished musician, if somewhat rigid in her approach. The arrangement could be mutually beneficial." As weeks passed, Olivia settled into this new living situation. Her relationship with Camilla evolved into something resembling mutual respect, if not quite friendship. Living together provided insights that humanized them to each other. Olivia discovered Camilla's private vulnerability about her musical future, while Camilla witnessed Olivia's relentless work ethic. December brought the conservatory's winter showcase, where Olivia performed Liszt's Un Sospiro. 3 months of intensive study had transformed her relationship with performance. Nervousness now a productive energy that enhanced rather than impeded her playing. After her successful performance, Eleanor approached with unexpected news. "The director of the New England Conservatory's summer program was impressed by your performance. They're offering you a fellowship for their chamber music intensive in July." "Thank you for recommending me," Olivia said. "I didn't," Eleanor replied. "Richard Harrington did, after hearing you at the Whitmore Gala. It seems your performance made quite an impression." This validation, that her playing had earned recognition without Eleanor's intervention, suggested her talent was beginning to speak for itself, independent of her unusual backstory. The spring semester brought continued growth and opportunities. Olivia was selected as a finalist in the concerto competition, an extraordinary honor for a first-year student, to perform Grieg's piano concerto with the Conservatory Orchestra at their spring gala. The evening of the gala, Olivia took her place at the Steinway wearing a new concert gown, a gift from Eleanor that had arrived that morning with a simple note, "For new beginnings." She noticed Eleanor had placed a single white lily on the piano bench, the same flower her mother had always given her before childhood recitals. As she played the concerto, Olivia experienced a perfect synthesis of technical control and emotional expression, the balance Eleanor had pushed her to achieve. When the final triumphant chords resounded, the audience rose in standing ovation. Eleanor approached the stage with a bouquet of lilies, the public gesture from her usually reserved mentor bringing tears to Olivia's eyes. Later, at the reception, Richard Harrington approached with Eleanor beside him. "Magnificent performance, Ms. Reed. I understand you'll be joining the New England Conservatory's summer program." "Yes, thanks in part to your recommendation," Olivia acknowledged. "Which was entirely earned," Eleanor interjected. "Richard, Olivia will be performing with the community outreach program throughout the summer as well. Perhaps you'd consider featuring her in the symphony's education initiative." As the reception concluded, Eleanor approached Olivia privately. "Your mother would be proud," she said simply. "I think she would," Olivia agreed, emotion tightening her throat. "She never stopped believing this was possible, even when I did." "What happens next?" Olivia asked, the question encompassing both her immediate academic future and broader career path. "You continue to work," Eleanor replied matter-of-factly. "Talent identified is merely potential. Talent developed through disciplined study becomes artistry. Artistry shared with genuine purpose becomes a worthy life in music." Later that night, as Olivia practiced quietly on the baby grand in the apartment she shared with Camilla, she reflected on the extraordinary transformation of the past year. From serving champagne to Boston's elite, to performing for them as an acknowledged artist, her external circumstances had changed dramatically. Yet the core remained consistent, her deep connection to music as both personal expression and universal language. This connection, first nurtured by her mother in their modest Memphis home, had sustained her through years of detour and delay. Now it would guide her forward as she continued to develop as both artist and person. As she played softly in the park, moonlit room, Olivia felt a profound sense of homecoming, not to a physical place but to her true self and purpose. The journey had been neither straightforward nor easy, but its winding path had led precisely where she was meant to be. Fim da história, queridos ouvintes. Esperamos que a jornada de Olivia Reed tenha tocado seus corações. Para continuar explorando histórias emocionantes de superação e descoberta, preparamos uma playlist especial com narrativas igualmente cativantes. Encontrem-na clicando no link à esquerda. Se esta história despertou algo em vocês, não esqueçam de se inscrever em nosso canal e deixar seu like no vídeo. Todos os dias trazemos histórias únicas que exploram a complexidade da vida humana. Compartilhem nos comentários qual momento da trajetória de Olivia mais ressoou com vocês e fiquem atentos às nossas próximas produções.